First contact at sunset. The setting sun painted streaks of purple and orange across the massive windows of the International Xenological Research Center, casting long shadows through the facility's pristine white corridors. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the decontamination chamber, her heart racing beneath her lab coat as she reviewed the protocols one final time. After 15 years of studying theoretical xenobiology, she was about to meet her first living, breathing alien. Final systems check complete, Dr. Chen announced the AI assistant. The Arcturian delegation will arrive in 3 minutes. Sarah straightened her back and smoothed down her coat. The weight of the moment pressed down on her shoulders, humanity's first permanent scientific collaboration with an alien species. The Arcturians had chosen Earth for their research base, citing humanity's unique biological diversity as their primary interest. What that meant, exactly, remained unclear. The facility's warning lights pulsed a soft blue, indicating incoming visitors. Sarah watched through the reinforced glass as the sleek Arcturian shuttle descended onto the landing pad, its crystalline hull refracting the sunset into thousands of rainbow patterns. The ship barely touched down before its entrance iris spiraled open, revealing a tall, elegant figure. Kurlax, the Arcturian chief researcher, emerged with fluid grace. Their crystalline exoskeleton caught the light, creating prismatic patterns that danced across the landing pad. Sarah had studied the briefing files extensively, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of seeing an Arcturian in person. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with a humanoid form that seemed to be composed of living crystal and light. "Welcome to Earth," Sarah said, activating the universal translator. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, head of xenobiology research." Kurlax turned toward her, their faceted head catching the light in mesmerizing ways. "Greetings, Dr. Chen. Your facility's quantum signature is harmonious." Their voice came through the translator with an almost musical quality. Sarah blinked, already noting data points to record later. The Arcturians perceived quantum states as easily as humans saw colors, a fact that had only been theoretical until now. "Thank you. We designed it according to the specifications your government provided." As they walked through the facility, Sarah couldn't help but notice how Kurlax seemed to resonate with certain areas, their crystalline form vibrating subtly. "Your species' ability to manipulate molecular structures is fascinating," Kurlax observed, pausing before a gene sequencing chamber. "Primitive but fascinating." Sarah bit back a smile at the backhanded compliment. "We're eager to learn from your expertise. The research partnership between our species could revolutionize both our understanding of biology." They reached the main laboratory, where Sarah's team had set up their first joint experiment. "This is where we'll begin our work on cross-species cellular regeneration," she explained, pulling up the holographic research protocols. Kurlax moved closer to examine the display, their crystalline form casting rainbow refractions across Sarah's face. "Your genetic structures are remarkably adaptable," they noted. "We've observed this in other carbon-based life forms, but humans possess unusual plasticity." "That's actually one of our key research questions," Sarah replied, excitement creeping into her voice. "Human cellular adaptation rates are statistically unusual compared to other Earth species. We're hoping your advanced scanning technology might help us understand why." As they discussed the research parameters, Sarah noticed something odd. Kurlax's normally precise movements became increasingly fluid, almost hypnotic. Their crystalline form seemed to pulse with internal light in a way that wasn't mentioned in any of the briefing materials. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked, professional concern overshadowing her excitement. "Your molecular resonance appears to be shifting." Kurlax turned toward her, their faceted surface rippling in a way that suggested confusion. "I am experiencing unusual quantum fluctuations, perhaps an effect of Earth's magnetic field." Sarah frowned, pulling up the environmental monitoring displays. All readings were within the predicted safe ranges for Arcturian biology. "Everything looks normal, but we should run a full diagnostic. Would you be comfortable with that? Acceptable. Coax agreed, their forms shimming with what Sarah was beginning to recognize as their version of curiosity. Though I must note, the fluctuations are not unpleasant. As Sarah began calibrating the diagnostic scanner, she couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The sun had fully set now, leaving the lab bathed in the soft glow of quantum field monitors and, more noticeably, the increasingly bright illumination emanating from within Coax's crystalline form. "This is remarkable," she muttered, watching the readings appear on her screens. "Your quantum field is synchronizing with local spacetime in a way we've never seen before. It's almost as if..." She trailed off, her scientific mind racing to process the implications. "As if my form is attempting to harmonize with Earth's biological frequency," Coax finished, their translator conveying a tone of wonder. "Most unexpected. Most interesting." Sarah looked up from her readings to find Coax studying her with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. The first day of human-Arcturian collaboration was already deviating from every predicted scenario. As she initiated the full spectrum analysis, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if they were on the verge of a discovery that would change both their species forever. The lab's quantum monitors pulsed rhythmically, casting alternating patterns of light and shadow across their faces as human and alien regarded each other with growing fascination. The real question was, what exactly had they stumbled upon, and where would it lead them? The accidental catalyst. 3 days into the joint research project, Sarah found herself increasingly fascinated by her Arcturian colleague. Coax moved through the laboratory with an ethereal grace, their crystalline form continuously reacting to the quantum fields around them in ways that defied their existing models of xenobiology. "The human endocrine system is remarkably inefficient," Coax observed, examining a holographic representation of hormone distribution patterns. "Yet it produces complex behavioral responses that our crystalline precision cannot replicate." Sarah adjusted the resolution on the quantum microscope. That inefficiency might be exactly what makes it special. Sometimes chaos creates possibilities that perfect order cannot. She was working with a newly synthesized compound, an experimental hormone designed to enhance human cellular regeneration. The molecule's structure had been inspired by studying Arcturian crystal patterns, a perfect blend of human and alien science. "Your hypothesis about quantum biological synchronization is intriguing," Coax said, drifting closer to observe her work. Their crystalline surface rippled with patterns that Sarah had begun to recognize as intellectual excitement. "Though your methods remain primitive." Sarah smiled a now familiar criticism. "Primitive methods sometimes yield surprising results. Look at this molecular structure." She gestured to the floating display, where the synthesized compound rotated slowly. "It's based on your crystalline resonance patterns, but modified to interact with human biology." Coax leaned in, their face plates shifting to focus on the microscopic detail. "Fascinating. You've created a hybrid structure that shouldn't be stable, yet." The warning klaxon shattered their concentration. Red lights flashed as the facility's AI announced, "Warning. Containment breach detected in lab section C7, initiating emergency protocols." Sarah's heart jumped into her throat. That's the environmental systems lab. If those samples get contaminated, she was already moving, Coax close behind. They rushed into the adjacent laboratory to find chaos. A maintenance robot had malfunctioned, knocking over a rack of experimental compounds. The automated systems were already attempting to contain the spill, but the air was filled with a fine mist of particles. "We need to seal this section," Sarah commanded, reaching for the emergency controls. "The filtration system will..." She never finished the sentence. Coax had moved forward, their crystalline form glowing intensely as they absorbed the airborne particles. "My structure can neutralize the contamination," they announced, their voice resonating strangely through the translator. Coax, "Wait, those compounds aren't tested for Arcturian biology." But it was too late. The alien's form had already incorporated the mysterious substance, their usually clear crystalline surface taking on a subtle rosy hue. Containment achieved, the AI announced. Air quality returning to normal parameters. Sarah rushed to Coax's side, medical scanner in hand. "Are you all right? That was incredibly dangerous." Her heart was pounding, though whether from fear or amazement at their selfless act, she couldn't tell. "I am functioning," Coax replied, but their voice contained harmonics Sarah had never heard before. "The compound has been neutralized, but something is occurring within my quantum matrix." Sarah's scanner confirmed her fears. The experimental hormone had indeed been neutralized, but not before it had begun interacting with Coax's crystalline structure. The readings showed impossible patterns of resonance between human biochemistry and Arcturian quantum states. "We need to get you to the medical bay immediately," Sarah insisted, reaching out instinctively to steady her colleague. The moment her hand touched Coax's surface, she felt a jolt of energy surge through her arm. "Your bioelectric field," Coax gasped, their whole form illuminating with swirling patterns of light. "It harmonizes." Sarah couldn't pull the hand away, mesmerized by the cascade of colors flowing through Coax's crystalline body. The scanner in her other hand was recording unprecedented levels of quantum entanglement between their two forms. "This is impossible," she whispered, watching as her own skin began to glow faintly where it contacted Coax's surface. The compound was designed to enhance human cellular regeneration, not to create quantum biological bridges between species. "Impossible," Coax echoed, their translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics in their voice, yet occurring nonetheless. "Your compound has initiated something unprecedented, Dr. Chen. Something transformative." They finally managed to separate, both stumbling back slightly. Sarah's scientific mind was racing, trying to process the implications of what had just happened. The compound had somehow created a bridge between human biochemistry and Arcturian quantum biology, a connection that should have been theoretically impossible. "We need to run full diagnostics," she said, trying to maintain professional distance despite the lingering sensation of connection. "This could have serious diplomatic implications if—" "If what, Dr. Chen?" Coax interrupted, moving closer again. Their crystalline form was still pulsing with those strange new patterns. "If it reveals that our species are more compatible than either of us imagined." Sarah swallowed hard, noting how her heart rate increased as Coax approached. The scanner in her hand was recording everything: the synchronization of their quantum fields, the harmonic resonance between their different forms of life, the way their very atoms seemed to sing to each other. "This changes everything," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everything we thought we knew about xenobiology, about the boundaries between different forms of life." "Perhaps," Coax replied, their form shimmering with what Sarah was beginning to recognize as anticipation. "That is exactly what both our species need to discover." As they stood there in the aftermath of the accident, surrounded by the soft hum of laboratory equipment and the pulsing glow of Coax's altered form, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something far more significant than either of them had imagined. The question was, were they ready for where this discovery might lead them? Chemical reactions. The medical bay's quantum scanners hummed softly as they mapped every facet of Coax's altered crystalline structure. Sarah had been running tests for hours, watching with growing fascination as the results defied every established principle of xenobiology. "Your molecular density has increased by 17%, she noted, studying the holographic display. "And these quantum resonance patterns, they're almost synchronized with human brainwave frequencies." Coax stood in the center of the scanning chamber, their form pulsing with waves of iridescent light. "The sensation is difficult to translate. It's as if I'm becoming aware of an entirely new spectrum of existence." Sarah checked another set of readings, trying to ignore how her skin tingled whenever Coax's quantum field brushed against her bioelectric aura. The compound seems to have created some sort of bridge between our biological systems. It's using your crystalline structure as a quantum antenna, tuning into human biochemical signatures. Primarily yours, Dr. Chen. Coax's voice carried an undertone that made the translator chirp with uncertainty. Your proximity generates a strongest resonance. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks, grateful that Arcturians couldn't detect human blushing, or at least they couldn't before. Now, Coax's faceted head turned toward her with sudden interest. Your capillary response indicates emotional activation, they observed. Fascinating. I can perceive your physiological changes with remarkable clarity. We need to focus on containing this situation, Sarah said firmly, though her racing heart betrayed a professional tone. The diplomatic implications alone. Director Chen to the administrative office immediately. The facility's AI interrupted. Arcturian High Command is requesting an emergency conference. Sarah's stomach dropped. They know already. The quantum entanglement between our forms would be detectable across considerable distances. Coax explained, their surface rippling with what might have been concern. My species is sensitive to such anomalies. The walk to the administrative office felt like the longest of Sarah's life. Each step brought them closer to what could become an interstellar incident. Coax moved beside her, their usually measured stride now carrying a fluid grace that seemed almost human. The conference room's holoscreen flickered to life, revealing the imposing form of Archonvex Till, the highest-ranking Arcturian official on Earth. Their crystalline structure was a deep, authoritative purple. Explain this aberration, the Archon demanded without preamble. Our sensors detect profound quantum disturbance in researcher Coax's matrix. Sarah stepped forward, years of scientific diplomacy kicking in. There was an accident involving an experimental compound designed to enhance human cellular regeneration. Coax heroically contained a containment breach, but the substance appears to have created an unexpected quantum biological interface. Unexpected. The Archon's form pulsed with skepticism, or intended. The timing of this accident seems convenient. With respect, Archon, Coax interjected, moving closer to Sarah. The human compound has granted insights into biological processes that our pure quantum science never achieved. The implications for both our species are dangerous, Vextil cut in. This violation of natural order threatens the purity of our crystalline essence. You will return to the homeworld immediately for purification. Sarah felt a surge of protest rise in her chest. The compound's effects may not be reversible through conventional means. Any attempted purification could cause catastrophic quantum cascade failure. The Archon's form darkened ominously. You presume to understand our methods, human. I understand enough to know that Coax's matrix has achieved a unique state of quantum biological harmony. Disrupting it could destroy everything we've learned about cross-species interaction. Your concern for my well-being is touching, Dr. Chen, Coax said softly, their form emanating patterns that made Sarah's skin tingle. But perhaps the Archon's caution is warranted. These sensations I'm experiencing, they are overwhelming. What sensations exactly? The Archon demanded, their crystalline surface fracturing with concern. Coax seemed to hesitate, their form shifting through various chromatic states. I perceive emotions, Archon, not as abstract quantum states, but as feelings, human feelings. They are chaotic, intense, beautiful. Abomination. The Archon's form flashed with angry red patterns. This contamination must be contained. A purification team will arrive within 12 Earth hours. Until then, researcher Coax is to be isolated from all human contact. The holoscreen went dark, leaving Sarah and Coax standing in stunned silence. The implications of what had just happened began to sink in. They had less than half a day to either find a solution or risk losing everything they discovered. I won't let them purify you, Sarah said firmly, surprising herself with the intensity of her conviction. Not without understanding what's happening first. This could be the breakthrough both our species need. Korax turned to her, their form glowing with swirling patterns she'd never seen before. These human emotions, they make everything more vivid, more real. Is this how your species experiences existence all the time? Sarah stepped closer, drawn by the mesmerizing display of light and color. What are you feeling right now? Everything, Korax whispered, their translator struggling to convey the complexity of harmonics in their voice. Fear of the unknown, excitement at these new sensations, and something else, something centered entirely around your presence. The quantum monitors in the room began pulsing rapidly, registering the increasing synchronization between their fields. Sarah knew she should step back, maintain professional distance, follow protocols. But for the first time in her career, scientific curiosity wasn't her primary motivation. "We have 12 hours, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Let's make them count. For science, of course." Of course, Korax agreed, their form shimmering with what could only be described as anticipation. For science, cultural complications. The facility's night cycle cast everything in soft blue emergency lighting as Sarah worked frantically in her laboratory. 10 hours remained before the Arcturian purification team's arrival, and every passing minute made her more certain that they were on the verge of something revolutionary. "These readings are unprecedented," she muttered, examining the latest quantum scans. "The compound isn't just creating a bridge between our biologies, it's synthesizing an entirely new form of quantum organic interface." Korax stood nearby, their crystalline form now swirling with complex patterns that somehow managed to look both alien and eerily human. The purification team will not see it that way. To them, this is corruption of the pure crystalline state. "But that's just it," Sarah exclaimed, pulling up a three-dimensional model of Korax's altered structure. "You're not being corrupted, you're evolving. Look at these neural quantum pathways. They're self-organizing into patterns that mimic human emotional centers while maintaining Arcturian quantum coherence. The sensations are intense," Korax admitted, moving closer to examine the display. "Each moment brings new understanding of human experience. For instance, I now comprehend why your species creates art." Sarah looked up, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "Before, I saw art as inefficient pattern arrangement. Now, their form rippled with colors that made Sarah's breath catch. Now I understand that beauty exists in the emotional response, not the logical structure." A warning light flashed on one of the monitors, interrupting their conversation. Sarah's heart sank as she read the notification. The Arcturian High Council is convening an emergency session. They're considering severing diplomatic relations over this incident. "They fear what they don't understand," Korax said, their voice carrying new harmonics of frustration. "Our society values stability above all else. This transformation threatens millennia of carefully maintained order." Sarah began pacing, her mind racing. There has to be a way to prove that this change is beneficial. If we could demonstrate that the quantum organic interface enhances rather than corrupts. Dr. Chen, the facility's AI interrupted. Security alerts detecting unusual activity in the Arcturian quarter. Multiple crystalline resonance signatures approaching the laboratory section. "What?" Sarah rushed to the security feeds. "The purification team isn't due for hours." "Not the purification team," Korax said grimly, their form dimming. "Those are my fellow researchers. They've been ordered to contain me until the team arrives." The security feeds showed a group of Arcturians moving through the facility, their usually transparent forms glowing with ominous purple light. Sarah's mind raced through options, protocols, procedures, and then discarded them all. "We need to leave. Now." She began quickly downloading their research data to a portable quantum drive. "They can't purify you before we understand what's really happening here. You would risk your career, your species' diplomatic relations with mine." Korax's form pulsed with surprise and something else, something very human. Sarah met their gaze steadily. Some discoveries are worth the risk. This could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness itself. The way your quantum matrix has adapted to process emotions, the bridge between biological and crystalline computing. She was interrupted by the sound of crystalline resonance from the corridor outside. The other Arcturians were getting closer. Kurlax moved suddenly, placing themselves between Sarah and the door. "Your protection isn't necessary," she said softly. "I'm not the one they're after." "You don't understand," Kurlax replied, their form blazing with newfound intensity. "These emotions, they generate protective impulses, powerful ones. I cannot allow them to harm you." "Harm me? But your people are peaceful researchers, surely they wouldn't." "We are peaceful because we control our quantum states absolutely. But now," Kurlax's surface rippled with complex patterns. "Now I understand how emotion can override logic, like your decision to help me despite the consequences." The laboratory door chimed with an access request. Sarah's heart pounded as she made her decision. "There's an old maintenance tunnel behind the particle accelerator. It leads to the surface vehicle bay." She grabbed the quantum drive and her tablet. Sometimes human inefficiency has its advantages. As they hurried to the hidden access panel, Sarah could hear crystalline harmonics growing stronger outside the main door. She typed in her emergency override code, and a section of wall slid silently aside. "Quick," she whispered, ushering Kurlax into the narrow passage. "The tunnel's shielded against quantum scanning. They won't be able to track us." Just as the panel slid shut behind them, they heard the laboratory door open. Sarah held her breath, listening to the resonant tones of Arcturian communication from the other side of the wall. "This way," she murmured, activating her tablet's guidance system. "There's a research outpost in the mountains. Old equipment, minimal monitoring. We can continue our work there until we find a way to prove that this change is beneficial." Kurlax moved close behind her, their crystalline form providing soft illumination in the dark tunnel. "You continue to fascinate me, Dr. Chen. Your species seems to thrive on defying protocols." "Sarah," she corrected, managing a small smile despite their situation. "I think we're well past professional formality at this point." "Sarah," Kurlax repeated, their voice creating harmonic patterns that sent shivers down her spine. "I believe I'm beginning to understand why humans value individual connection over collective stability." As they made their way through the maintenance tunnel, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what other revelations awaited them. They were fugitives now, pursuing a discovery that could either bridge the gap between their species or tear apart years of careful diplomacy. But watching the play of emotions across Kurlax's crystalline surface, fear, excitement, determination, and something increasingly profound, Sarah knew she had made the right choice. Some risks were worth taking, some rules worth breaking, especially when they stood on the brink of understanding something truly extraordinary. Breaking protocol. The mountain research outpost emerged from the pre-dawn mist like a forgotten relic of an earlier age of science. Its weathered solar panels and antiquated satellite dish spoke of decades of neglect, but to Sarah and Kurlax, it was sanctuary. "The facility's quantum shielding is primitive," Kurlax observed as Sarah unlocked the manual door controls. "But perhaps that will work to our advantage." "Sometimes older is better," Sarah replied, ushering them inside, "especially when you're trying to avoid modern detection systems." The outpost's interior was a time capsule of early 21st century technology. Dust-covered monitors lined the walls, and the air held the musty scent of disuse. Sarah quickly moved to the main control panel, her fingers flying over the ancient keyboard. "I can restore basic power and life support," she said, watching as systems gradually came online. "The real question is whether we can replicate the lab conditions needed to properly study your transformation." Kurlax moved to the center of the room, their crystalline form casting rainbow patterns across the aged equipment. "Perhaps basic conditions are all we need. The changes within my quantum matrix continue to evolve regardless of external monitoring." As if to emphasize their point, a new wave of colors rippled through their structure, accompanied by a harmonic resonance that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Sarah's scientific detachment wavered as she watched the display, remembering how those patterns had intensified whenever she was near. "How are you feeling?" she asked, setting up what monitoring equipment she could. "Any new sensations or awareness?" "The emotional responses grow more nuanced," Kovacs replied, the translator struggling to convey the complexity in their voice. "I begin to understand why humans write poetry, why they create music. These feelings demand expression." Sarah's heart skipped a beat as Kovacs approached her workstation. "The compound seems to be creating new neural quantum pathways faster than I can track them. It's as if your crystalline structure is learning to process emotions the way a human brain would, but at a quantum level." "Not just processing them," Kovacs corrected, their form pulsing with what Sarah now recognized as excitement. "Experiencing them, feeling them." "Sarah, I..." A sudden alert from Sarah's tablet interrupted them. Her blood ran cold as she read the message. "They're coming. The purification team's ship just entered Earth's atmosphere." Kovacs's form dimmed slightly. "How long?" 2 hours, maybe less." Sarah ran her fingers through her hair in frustration. "It's not enough time. We need to prove that this transformation is beneficial, that it could lead to greater understanding between our species." "Perhaps," Kovacs said slowly, their surface shifting with new patterns. "We already have proof." "What do you mean?" "Look at what has happened in the past 24 hours. I have gained understanding of human emotion that millennia of formal study could not achieve. And you," their form brightened, "you have begun to perceive quantum states without any technological assistance." Sarah started to protest, then stopped. Kovacs was right. She had been reading their emotional displays through their crystalline patterns, understanding nuances that should have been impossible for human perception. The compound didn't just create a bridge between our biologies, she realized, excitement building in her voice. It's teaching both our species how to understand each other at the most fundamental level. She rushed to her tablet, pulling up the latest scan data. "Look at these patterns. Your quantum matrix isn't just mimicking human emotional centers, it's creating a new form of consciousness that combines the best of both our species. The precision of quantum computing with the adaptability of human emotion." "And you," Kovacs moved closer, their form blazing with intensity, "have begun to develop quantum sensitivity that should be impossible for human neurology. We are evolving together, Sarah, beyond what either of our species thought possible." The air between them seemed to crackle with energy as their fields synchronized. Sarah could feel it now, not just with her instruments, but with some new sense she couldn't quite explain, the complex quantum dance of Kovacs's thoughts and emotions. "We need to document everything," she said, trying to maintain scientific focus despite the growing connection between them. "If we can prove that this transformation enhances both our species..." The outpost's ancient warning systems suddenly blared to life. Sarah's tablet showed multiple vehicles approaching up the mountain road. "No," she whispered, "they found us too quickly. The purification team." "Not the purification team," Kovacs interrupted, their form pulsing with complex harmonics. "The patterns are wrong. These are human vehicles." The tablet confirmed it. A convoy of International Science Coalition security forces was heading their way. Sarah's throat tightened as she realized the implications. "They must think I've been compromised, that I'm a security risk." She laughed bitterly. "I suppose they're not entirely wrong. What will they do?" "Best case, detention and investigation. Worst case," she shook her head. "They might decide that containing an alien biotechnology threat justifies extreme measures." Kovacs's form flared with protective patterns that made Sarah's heart race. "I will not allow them to harm you." "No," Sarah said firmly. "No more running. No more hiding." She straightened her back, determination replacing fear. "We have proof that this transformation is beneficial. We have data showing the potential for a true symbiosis between our species. It's time to make them understand. She began rapidly typing commands into her tablet, uploading their research data to multiple secure servers. If they want to stop this, they'll have to acknowledge it first. The whole world will see what we've discovered. Kurlax moved to stand beside her, their quantum field harmonizing with her bioelectric aura in a way that felt both alien and perfectly natural. Together then. Sarah looked up at her transformed colleague, her friend, and felt a surge of emotion that transcended ordinary human experience. Together. The sound of vehicles growing closer echoed through the mountain valley as human and alien stood side by side, preparing to defend a discovery that could change both their species forever. The real question was, would their worlds be ready for what they had become? Diplomatic solutions. The morning sun crested the mountain peaks as the security vehicles surrounded the outpost. Above, the distinctive shimmer of an Arcturian ship cast prismatic patterns across the landscape. Sarah stood in the outpost's doorway, Kurlax at her side, their combined presence creating an otherworldly display of quantum resonance and human determination. Dr. Chen, a voice boomed through external speakers. You are ordered to surrender yourself and the compromised Arcturian specimen for immediate containment. Specimen. Kurlax's form pulsed with indignation, sending waves of color through the air. Their primitive understanding is almost amusing. Sarah stepped forward, her tablet raised. I'm transmitting our research data to all major scientific institutions worldwide. In approximately 30 seconds, everyone will see what we've discovered. The Arcturian ship descended closer, its crystalline surface vibrating with ominous harmonics. A figure materialized on the ground, Archon Vextil, their purple form darker than ever. You risk everything, the Archon's voice resonated across the clearing. Generations of careful diplomacy, the stability of both our species. No, Sarah called back, feeling Kurlax's supportive presence behind her. We're offering both our species a chance at something greater than stability. We found a way to truly understand each other. She activated her tablet's projection system, displaying their research in massive holograms around the outpost. Complex quantum patterns danced alongside human neural maps, showing the unprecedented synthesis occurring in Kurlax's transformed structure. Look at the data, she continued, her voice gaining strength. The compound didn't contaminate Kurlax, it evolved them. And in the process, it's teaching humans how to perceive quantum states naturally. We're witnessing the birth of true interspecies communication. Impossible, Vextil declared, but their form wavered with uncertainty as they processed the displayed data. Kurlax moved forward, their crystalline surface blazing with emotional patterns that even the human security forces could perceive. I stand before you as living proof, Archon. I have not lost my Arcturian nature. I have transcended it. I understand now what our rigid pursuit of perfection has cost us. A murmur ran through the human forces as Kurlax's form began to pulse with increasingly complex patterns. The air itself seemed to shimmer with quantum potential. You fear emotion because you cannot control it, Kurlax continued, addressing both species now. But look at what it has helped humans achieve. Their art, their music, their ability to find solutions where pure logic sees none. Now imagine that creative chaos guided by quantum precision. Sarah stepped closer to Kurlax, and the interaction between their fields created a display that left both humans and Arcturians speechless. Colors and patterns that had never existed before danced through the air, carrying meanings that transcended traditional communication. The compound didn't just create a bridge between our species, Sarah explained, her voice soft but carrying clearly in the stunned silence. It showed us what we could become together. The precision of quantum consciousness combined with the adaptability of human emotion. She turned to face the assembled forces directly. You can try to contain this discovery, to purify it away or lock it in some secret facility, but you can't unfind what we found. The potential for true understanding between our species exists now. The only question is whether we're brave enough to embrace it. Archon Vex still moved closer, their crystalline structure analyzing the complex patterns flowing between Surah and Karax. These harmonics, they're unlike anything in our records. The synthesis is beyond our predictions. Because you never predicted that emotion could enhance rather than corrupt, Karax replied. That feeling deeply could lead to understanding that pure logic could never achieve. A new sound filled the air, a crystalline harmonic that made every human present feel a wave of pure wonder. The Arcturian ship was resonating, its entire structure responding to the quantum emotional display before it. The ship's quantum core, Vextil whispered. It's synchronizing. Sarah checked her tablet's readings with amazement. The harmonic bridge we created, it's spreading. The ship's crystalline matrix is adapting, learning to process emotional input just like Karax did. Not just the ship, Karax added, their form pulsing with joy. Look at them, Sarah. The human security forces had lowered their weapons, many reaching out as if trying to touch the shifting patterns in the air. And the Arcturians, their usually rigid forms were beginning to pulse with new colors, new possibilities. This is what evolution looks like, Sarah said, addressing everyone present. Not corruption or contamination, but growth. The next step for both our species. Arch and Vextil was silent for a long moment, their form shifting through complex patterns of consideration. Finally, they spoke. The High Council must be informed. This transformation, it cannot be undone. No, Karax agreed, moving to stand beside Sarah. But it can be understood, studied, refined. Imagine what our species could achieve together if we stopped fearing change and started embracing connection. The sun had fully risen now, its light creating impossible refractions through the quantum-charged air. Human and Arcturian alike stood in a moment of shared wonder, witnessing the birth of something entirely new. We'll need protocols, the human security commander said finally. Guidelines for controlled research, safety measures.